Hi there, I'm Rue. Welcome to my video. Welcome to the second ever Crime Lime. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode where we talked about the worst Norwegian serial killer, Arnfinn Nesse. Today's video is going to be a completely different type of case. The case of the Blanchards. Now, chances are you've probably heard about this case, either if you've seen HBO's documentary on it, Mommy Dead and Dearest, or their HBO TV series, based loosely on the events, called The Act, or you've seen it in the news. You've probably heard about it because it was such an unusual and unique case. It's a case where you're left wondering who's really the victim and who's really the monster. Now, this case all starts unfolding on June 15th, 2015, in Springfield, Missouri, in America, United States. So what starts it off is the police get calls from worried neighbors and worried family friends of the Blanchards. The Blanchard family consists of two people, the mother, Dee Dee, and her heavily disabled daughter, Gypsy Rose. Why are they worried? Because they've just seen some really horrifying Facebook posts on Dee Dee's and Gypsy's shared Facebook page. That usually is just all about Disney and all about like wonderful, like childlike, beautiful, magical things. All of a sudden it says, "That bitch is dead." Now, people were obviously confused, like, what's going on here? Some people were like, did you get hacked? What is this? Like, you never talk like this. Other people were like, oh, you're watching a scary movie? Only to be more alarmed when the reply they get is, "I fucking slashed that fat pig and raped her sweet innocent daughter. Her scream was so fucking loud. Laugh out loud." So obviously they're like, oh my god, what's going on? They go to their house to try to check on them to see if they're okay, but no one answers. And now they're really worried, so they call the police. Now the police show up, and they find the mother, Dee Dee, dead in the home. She's been stabbed 17 times to death. So now they know that Dee Dee, the mother, is dead, but now they're really worried about the daughter, Gypsy Rose, because she is severely disabled, wheelchair-bound, and has all kinds of illnesses, and Dee Dee is not just her mother, but also her 24/7 carer. And the Facebook post that they think was made by the killer said that they didn't just kill the mother, they also raped her daughter, so they're all really worried. And this is where things get bizarre. Because they do find the daughter, alive and well, walking around like a completely normal, no medical problem person, in a state far away, in the house of her secret boyfriend that they didn't know that she had. Now everyone is so confused, like, what is going on? Isn't this girl disabled? They're so confused, right? They're like, just like being hoodwinked. It's like, wait, what? It's like a plot twist that just seems so unrealistic that no one would write it into a movie. That's how crazy it is. Turns out that the mother-daughter duo are not what they seem. So they take Gypsy and her boyfriend in for questioning, and Gypsy feigns knowledge about her mother being dead, and I say feign. She pretends like she doesn't know, and you'll see why I say that. But Nick, however, her boyfriend, he's just like, yeah, I killed her. Gypsy told me to kill her mother, so I did, so we could be happily ever after. Now, investigators are not only baffled by the fact that, okay, she's not disabled, what's going on, but also why would she want to kill her mother? Turns out that Dee Dee, the mother, was a classic abuser with Munchausen by proxy. Now, if you don't know what that is, Munchausen in and of itself is a mental ailment where you hurt yourself and or pretend like you're hurt or have some sort of medical ailment in order to get sympathy and attention. Munchausen by proxy is when you make someone else sick so that you can get the attention and all the praise for caring for that person. And that's what Dee Dee, the mother, had been doing for Gypsy's entire life. Told you nothing is as it seems. And the crazy thing is, there was nothing wrong with her daughter, but she convinced everyone that her daughter was mentally challenged and that she was wheelchair bound and that she had cancer, that she had all kinds of medical disorders. Obviously, Gypsy knew about the fact that she could walk, but she had also been lied to her whole life. She convinced Gypsy that she had to be in a wheelchair. She forced her daughter to not walk. She would beat her with her hands, with coat hangers, and, overall be really abusive to Gypsy to get her to behave the way that she wanted. When it comes to the other ailments, she did convince her daughter that she did have all those other ailments, though, because her mother would drug her so that she would have symptoms of all of these diseases, because the drugs she was giving Gypsy was having side effects that was producing all of these symptoms of other diseases. And the crazy thing is, Dee Dee convinced medical professionals that Gypsy was this ill. So all of a sudden this case goes from someone murdered this wonderful woman who has been caring for her sick child to this woman has been murdered so that the child can get away from this abusive, crazy person who's been holding her hostage her entire life. It started out when she was little. She would tell Gypsy's father that Gypsy had all kinds of medical things going on, and once he started questioning things, that's when she was like, actually, no, we're leaving, we're moving somewhere else, and she took Gypsy and she moved away so that no one could question what she was doing. And whenever someone questioned her about this, she would distance herself from them, and they ended up moving around a lot, which is perfect if you think about it, because she's lying about her daughter being really ill, and whenever someone starts to realize that there's something not adding up, she just leaves, And for a really long time, that worked. And the insane thing is, she convinced medical professionals to the degree, and this just speaks to how good of a manipulator this woman was, that her daughter had all these medical ailments that she got medical professionals to conduct all kinds of medical procedures on Gypsy. And I'm not talking about a little blood test here and a little checkup there. I'm talking about really invasive, big-time procedures. They had organs of hers removed, they had a feeding tube installed because she convinced them that her daughter couldn't eat anything because she was allergic to everything. She also convinced her daughter of this, and she could only be tube fed through the feeding tube that was on her stomach, which is where she would poison her with the medication, because she would mix everything up, she would mix everything up, food, all the pills and medications and drugs she was feeding her to make her sick, and then she would just give it to her daughter, and her daughter was none the wiser, because she genuinely thought that she was sick, because her mom told her she was sick. Why wouldn't she believe that? All these medical procedures had organs removed, glands removed. It's crazy. She also had her teeth removed because, her mom was like, well, it's not like you need them. You're being tube fed anyways. And people just went along with it. Just because she was such a good manipulator, they went along with it. It's insane. And it's so crazy that no doctors caught on to what was going on. Although there was one doctor who literally wrote in his journal that he thought that this could be a case of Munchausen by proxy, because the mother would just have all this information, but she wouldn't have any proof, and she would just go to doctor whenever a doctor would say no, to get medication, to get medical surgeries. It was just insane. But he didn't do anything about it, and that pisses me off so much. He literally wrote, I think this is a case of Munchausen by proxy, in the journal, but he didn't alert anyone. Why? Because he thought it would be difficult to convince people. He thought he would be met with an uphill battle, so instead of, being a good person and doing the right thing and, fighting for his patient, he was just like, nah, not gonna do that. And he just, wrote it in a journal, hoping that someone else would find it, maybe, possibly. That is so nuts! This woman has been inflicting literal, physical, invasive torture on her child, because it is torture and barbaric when you think about the fact that she didn't need any of these surgeries for her entire life. And he doesn't do anything about it. That just blows my mind and pisses me off so much. Now, Gypsy did believe that she was sick because her mother had told her. But as she was growing older, she was starting to get suspicious because things weren't adding up. Not only the fact that she was being forced to be in a wheelchair and she was being forced to pretend like she was mentally challenged. Her mother would constantly hold her hand when they were around others. In every single picture you see of them together, she's holding her hand. Dee Dee is holding Gypsy's hand, and Gypsy has come out and said that the reason she did this was because whenever Gypsy would say something that she wasn't supposed to, maybe did something she wasn't supposed to be able to do, you know, because her mother was forcing her to pretend like she was all kinds of challenged, her mother would squeeze her hand, and Gypsy would know to stop it. Because her mom was not only controlling, she would also beat her. She would beat her. So Dee Dee had just this all-encompassing control over Gypsy. And whenever they were out in public, just to remind her that she couldn't say anything to anyone, she would be holding her hand, you know. It's a power move thing, where it's like, yeah, we might be in public, but I own you. You're mine, I own you. So, you know, people have said in hindsight, like, yeah, now that I think about it, that's really creepy, but when we were around them, we just thought that she just loved her daughter and, you know, wanted to hold her hand. But that was not what was going on, clearly. But Gypsy was getting suspicious, and whenever other people weren't watching, she would walk around. She would be out of her wheelchair, even though her mother didn't like this. But Gypsy would start sneaking out at night. Not sneaking out, but sneaking out of the room, because her mother would be sleeping like a rock. Because her mother would be taking some sleeping pills. She wasn't just drugging her daughter, she was also drugging herself a little bit. So Gypsy had the opportunity to be free at night. And she would sneak out of her room and watch YouTube videos, eat things she wasn't supposed to. That's when she realized that actually I'm not allergic to all of these things because my mother keeps telling me if I have sugar I'll die, or like have all these other things I'll die, yet I keep eating it and nothing happens. It was just like a control thing. So she was sneaking out of her bedroom at night and she was doing things on the computer. She had her own secret Facebook account. She made friends online. That was really the only place that she could be free, because in everyday life she had to pretend like she was mentally challenged. She couldn't really talk to anyone. Her mother was always with her, and online she could be herself. And I think anyone who's been online knows that you get a mixed bag. You get a mixed bag. There's nice people on there, but there's also some people who are not so nice. And some people in particular who are on there who don't have the best intentions of girls, of young girls. And I think she ran into quite a lot of those people, and she was really naive. She was really sheltered. She hadn't even gone to school because her mother would homeschool her, but in reality she wasn't schooling her at all. She only had a second grade education. I think it only fed into like her mother's need to keep her under her control. Would be like, yeah, I'm just not going to teach her anything else because, you know, it's easier to control her the less she knows. And it's easier to convince people that she's way younger than she is and let, you know, she's mentally challenged and she does have a, like that she has a child-like mind if I just keep her a child. Which does seem to be one of the main motives of the mother of Dee Dee, was to keep Gypsy a child forever, a forever child. And she would lie to her about how old she was so that she would never get any ideas about, oh, I'm old enough to live on my own now or anything like that. She would never allow her to watch things that weren't for children. She was only allowed to watch cartoons, you know, Disney, fairy tales, that kind of thing. And she was, you know, doing her darndest to keep Gypsy a child forever. And I think that's just because she wanted to have her dependent on her forever. Because if she was a child, children are dependent on their parents. And she wanted Gypsy to be fully dependent on her. So that was just part of her need for control. Now you might ask, why would she do all of these things? Aside from being, you know, a bad person and evil and wanting to get all the sympathy. You know, that's what Munchausen by proxy abusers want. They want sympathy. They want to be looked at as the hero. They want to be like, oh yes, I am like this martyr and I'm taking care of this person. Give me all the sympathy. That's what they want. They crave attention. They love it. But also, it was a financial scam because she kept like getting all of this money, getting all of these monetary benefits from pretending like her daughter was really ill. Like they would get free trips to Disneyland. They would get like a house from Habitat for Humanity built for them because her daughter was so sick and her mother was such a wonderful person for taking care of her. So she was constantly like entering her daughter into these like award thingies where she could win money and, you know, get all the attention and sympathy for being such a wonderful mother. So that was like, it was both a financial and a mental satisfaction stimuli for her that she wanted. Those were the motives that she had. As Gypsy got older, no matter how much her mother was trying to keep her a forever child, hormones kicks in, you know? And she was being a teenager, you know, starting to not be a child anymore. So online she made friends and she, you know, could finally be herself. She did try to run away. People might say, why didn't she try to run away? She did try to run away. She tried to run away with someone she met online, but her mother found her, like tracked her down, and she threatened the guy that she would report him for like kidnapping a disabled girl and basically being a pedophile because her mother was like, she's just a child on the inside. And drug her back home, and she was just like, if you ever do that again, I'm gonna hurt you. She hammered her computer to death because, like, how dare you meet people online? And she's like, if you do that again, I'm gonna hammer your fingers like I hammered this computer. So even when she did try to run away, her mother was like, no, I still control you. So she tried. Also, after that, her mother was like, I'm gonna declare you mentally incompetent so that no one will believe you ever. So she was trapped. And I feel like this case is such a classic case of authorities at every turn betraying Gypsy. Because medical professionals believed her mom, they were complicit in all these medical procedures. They didn't know, but still they just went along with it, like just, oh yeah, sure, your child is ill. Well, you want this procedure? Okay, howdy doody, let's just do that then. Like they were complicit, so she didn't feel like she could tell anyone because everyone was just going along with this. And if she tried to speak up, her mother would just be like, no, she's mentally challenged. Nobody will believe you. And even when like CPS were tipped off, because there was an anonymous tip that something was severely wrong with their family, they just showed up to the house and talked to the mom and didn't investigate. And her mom was such a great manipulator that she just manipulated them out the door and they just didn't investigate anything. So to be fair, yeah, she like was in on killing her mom, but also she was a prisoner. Like if she had been kidnapped by a man and she had killed him to get away, people would salute her. People would be like, yeah, go you got away from that monster. But because it's her mother, people just believe whatever she says. The mother, whatever Dee Dee says, and Gypsy's just an eternal prisoner, and the only way that she felt that she could get away was if her mother didn't exist anymore. Because the police, the CPS people, authorities were like, nope, your mom is right. Yeah, like, of course, we believe her. Medical professionals, they were in on it. Like, she felt like she was trapped. So what she does is, when she finally gets a hold of a computer again and she has access to the internet again, she befriends a guy named Nick Godejohn. Now, something you need to know about Nick is that he is actually developmentally challenged. He has the mind of a 15-year-old basically, and he has autism and Asperger's. Gypsy is actually a very smart person. She is not mentally challenged at all, but he is. So I genuinely believe that she, Gypsy, having grown up with such a manipulative mother, growing up with this woman who lies, manipulates, that's all she sees, basically a sociopath has been raising her, and who's, torturing her, like she knows how to manipulate people because that's what she's picking up from her mom, the person she's with all the time. That's all she knew. That's all she knew. She knew how to manipulate people. And that's what she did with Nick. She manipulated him to kill her mother. And she is also the one who posted the Facebook messages. Pretty remorseless. And psychologists say that that's really sociopathic, you know? But I'm not surprised that she would have issues, you know? If you grow up with someone who's literally isolating you and that's the only person you get to hang out with, really, and that person is a abusive, sociopathic, evil, manipulative person, that's the things you're going to pick up, right? Also, what people have pointed out is that she was constantly being drugged with antidepressants, and that those antidepressants might make you really apathetic, which means basically a little bit sociopathic, where you only see like the practical stuff and you can sort of push your feelings aside and not feel so bad about things. And I can testify to this because I take medication for anxiety. And one of the first medications that I was on, that wasn't right for me, but one of the first ones did make me pretty apathetic, and it feels really weird. It just makes you feel like you're never socially anxious, you can manipulate people, and you can just remove your emotions and see the practical in social interactions. Now, because, you know, I've known what it's like to have empathy and stuff, I knew that that was happening because it was one of the side effects. So of course I was like, what the hell is happening? This feels weird. But if she's always felt like this because her mom has been drugging her, that's a fair defense, you know, for callously kind of murdering your mother or manipulating someone into doing it. So she has her boyfriend Nick come over and murder her mom while she hangs out in the other room. And then they ran away and they, you know, went to hang out with his parents. And it's truly chilling if you see the video footage of them going into like a travel agency or something. They look so calm and collected, like it's just a regular happy day and they just murdered someone. And they just go to his parents who live far away and they're, you know, they hang out there. And then Gypsy decides to post those horrible things on Facebook. If it weren't for that, I don't think they would have found her mom's body for a long time. So of course, both Gypsy and Nick were charged with murder. Gypsy was given 10 years in prison. She had to take a plea deal because of the circumstances, because of what her mom had been doing to her. She'd been literally been like in prison for almost 2 decades. So they thought that 10 years, that's, you know, she's already suffered so much. But Nick he's facing I think 30 years, which I think is really unfair. He was being manipulated, and I don't support her in how she's distancing herself from him, because when they were arrested, Gypsy did blame everything on Nick. I think she was the mastermind, but at the same time, I don't think she's an evil person. But I do think she used him to survive. But I don't think he should be in prison. I think both of them should be in some sort of mental facility. Him because, obviously he needs some help because he was readily talked into murdering people. He did say that he would never have killed anyone unless she would have told him to. And her because she's grown up with a sociopath who's been abusing her whole life and manipulating people. And, she needs to learn some normal life mode sort of things. How to be a normal person and not manipulate people and not use that, even though that's what she's grown up with and that's what she's learned. She says that she's really remorseful now, and now that she's not on medication anymore, and I believe her. Although it's really hard, I think, to shake loose and get away from the manipulative ways when that's all you know. But I do think she's really remorseful, but at the same time, I don't think anyone would blame her for not feeling bad about what she did. Only the part where she manipulated someone into doing it for her. But her mom was just a monster. So I think it's not as clear-cut as people might think. I don't think they belong in prison. I do think she manipulated him and she knew what she was doing. But I don't think she's a malicious person. I think she's just really screwed up by being raised by that woman. If you've seen the documentary, I really recommend watching the documentary on HBO. I don't recommend watching The Act, the TV series, because I find it so overly dramatized and detached from the real case I feel a lot of it is just over dramatized and over glamorized, and I feel it's just really far-fetched to what was actually happening. So I would recommend watching the documentary, but not the TV show. No. But if you see the documentary, you see them interview the family of Dee Dee. And her own father, Dee Dee's father, so Gypsy's grandfather, said, yeah, there's always been something wrong with her. She's always been narcissistic and always done whatever is good for her. She doesn't care about who she hurts. And when she was younger, she would steal money from people and rack up credit card debt and like enormous amounts and not care at all if it hurt people and gave them debt and stuff. And he thinks that she poisoned his wife once, her stepmother, because now that they look back, they know that what she's capable of. They're like, well, that was this one time where she made some food and my wife was sick for 9 months, which is crazy. And she had been in charge, Dee Dee had been in charge of caring for her biological mother until she died. And she died under suspicious circumstances, and now that they know what she's been doing to Gypsy all these years, they strongly believe that she actually murdered her mother, that she was making her mother ill, and that she straight up murdered her, and that that's where she learned how to make people sick, from doing it to her mom first, who died. And, you know, all kinds of things about her. Like, she's not liked by her family. And, you know, she did isolate themselves from that family because her family was seeing through her and what the things she did. And they said that she had like an evil streak about her. She would just do whatever she wanted. She didn't care about who it hurt. And she would get like satisfaction from hurting people. So taking that into account too, I don't think Gypsy is a bad person. She literally was living with a monster who was abusing her. I just think it's a case where society and the system at every turn let Gypsy down. So it seems like she felt like the cops won't help me, the authorities won't help me, doctors won't help me, no one will help me. And the only way to get away from this is if one of us is dead. And effectively, that's exactly what she was doing to her daughter, too, Dee Dee, because most Munchausen by proxy cases, that's why this case is so unusual, is because most Munchausen by proxy cases ends up with the child dying at a young age. But Dee Dee was able to continuously make her daughter sick enough to be sick, but not kill her. So I think that Gypsy was just like, well, the only way to get away from her is if she's dead. It's me or her. What do you think? Do you think that she should be in prison? What do you think about this case? Do comment below. I hope you found that case interesting and that you want to hear more Crime Lime. If you do, remember to subscribe, leave a like, and do comment below what other cases do you want me to cover in this new series. Thank you so much to my wonderful patrons, Katbra, Madayana Jaworska, Ono Balloons, and Ellie. You make this possible. If anyone's interested in supporting this new series, there's a link below. Don't forget to join me next Wednesday when we delve into the case of Diane Downs, the mother who tried to kill all her children.